crouched before a cold fireplace with a lit match in my hand. I touched the flame to some crumpled newspaper tucked beneath the kindling, and a small headline on an adjacent page caught my eye: College and Community Chorale to Resume. On impulse, I rescued that page and I smoothed it flat on the floor. The fire crackled and roared to life as I read about a student choral group at the local college that welcomed community members. No auditions required. Rehearsals for a spring performance of Mozart's Requiem were about to begin. A 3-hour class meeting for the next 15 Wednesday nights. I couldn't possibly do that, I thought. Yet I hesitated to return the paper to the fire. That same impulse made me flag my calendar for the first class. Though I had once loved choral singing, I cataloged all the reasons why I should just forget about this. Other than some Christmas caroling, I hadn't sung in a chorus or a choir in 30 years. I hadn't touched a keyboard or a guitar or even read a piece of sheet music in nearly as long. Besides, my work schedule was too demanding and unpredictable for me to make all those rehearsals. I was still thinking this that late winter Wednesday as I walked into the music department's recital hall. All was instantly familiar. The water fountain and the bulletin board, the scent of floor wax, and the sounds from a distant rehearsal room. A solo piano, a woman singing scales. Feeling like an imposter, I signed out a copy of the bound 80-page score, took a seat in the bass section in the rear of the room, and greeted the men around me. I counted 50 singers in that room, equally split between students and gray hairs like me. While the last stragglers arrived, I opened the score and I began reading. I was nervous. My armpits were damp. But I calmed myself, recalling my beloved elementary school teacher, my music teacher, Mrs. Diane Jacobs, who taught me, "Every good boy does fine." The accompanist, a small, bald man, settled himself on the bench before a baby grand in the front of the room. The director managed a perfunctory greeting and directed us to a page somewhere in the middle of the score. "Okay," he said, raising his hand, "sopranos." The pianist played and the women up front sang as if they already knew the piece. Staring at the music, I struggled to orient myself, to follow along as the women sang. "Now," the director said, looking toward us, "basses." The piano again, the collective intake of breath around me, followed by the sound of men singing, a resonance I felt in my chest. All those notes looked like bird shots scattered on the page. Still wondering if I really should have sat over there with the tenors, I found my place and I joined in. But when that line ended, I couldn't find the next bass clef fast enough, and they went on without me. I can't do this, I thought after the rehearsal, certain that I would not return. I felt unaccountably angry, and it seemed to me that I had been angry every day for the 6 months since my brother George had died, prematurely and unnecessarily, in my opinion. Anger that had shielded me from the grief that lurked just beneath it. But I did return, 14 more times, clocking nearly 50 hours singing a 400-year-old funeral mass in Latin. A piece of music that's now become part of my DNA. Throughout all those hours of rehearsal, I was grieving, and I was singing that requiem for my lost brother. Those Wednesday night rehearsals had begun in the dark, but as winter receded, the days grew longer and brighter. The evening of the recital, on stage finally, in tuxedos and gowns, we sang Mozart's masterwork beside a 26-piece orchestra, all of us joining to form a complex machine assembled just this one time to make an extraordinary and beautiful sound. And then before I knew it, it was spring.